Welcome to episode 286 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. 3 industry experts join me in this episode to look at the trends, the key events and developments that will affect the delivery sector in 2023. I'm joined by Thiemo van Spellen, Global Accounts Director at DPDgroup, and Snitko, Chief Product Officer at Omnic, and David Spottiswoode, Co-founder at Ecommerce. They join me to discuss 3 very different topics, but relevant topics for the delivery world. So stay tuned for this very special episode with 3 great speakers. Joining me on the line is Thiemo van Spellen. Thiemo is Global Account Director at DPDgroup. Thiemo, great having you on the Postal Hub podcast. We're coming out of, we've had an unusual few years in the delivery sector. Even 2022 has been a funny year. So tell us, how would you describe the impact of all these geopolitical events on the parcel delivery industry?
Yes, well, it's great to be here, Ian. And yes, the impact of all these geopolitical developments, of course, is hitting the retail and economic situation in general, but also retail and e-commerce in a negative way. We just came out of, let's say, 2 years of very high volumes in the e-commerce and parcel business due to this health crisis in the COVID pandemic. And we're actually in 2022 in let's say a correction of that steep growth, now being in a post-COVID situation. And that correction actually was hit in a negative way by the economic situation, where consumers are really keen on every euro or dollar that they spend, and watching much more their budgets. And that's, of course, impacting our customers' business and therefore also our business in the parcel industry. But we don't believe it's a downturn for e-commerce and delivery at all. I think it's just initially a correction on the steep growth that we saw, but still the long-term trends and medium-term trends are very positive, and we expect e-commerce to be in the same growth pace as before the pandemic, actually.
So when we're looking forward then to 2023, do you see that this sort of trend will continue, or what are your thoughts on what's going to happen over the next 12 months?
Yes, I wish I would have a crystal ball to tell the future. It's, of course, nobody really knows what the economic situation is in 2023 and how it will develop. But at least I think that as logistics players, we will have to, let's say, expect to be dedicated to optimizing the business that we have. I think growth will not be as in the 2 pandemic years that we have seen. So it will be more about optimizing the business, but it will be therefore be much more about entrepreneurship, creating opportunities in the market and creativity, because it's I think the market situation, economic situation, is something that nobody and no company individually can change or can influence. So we'll have to deal with that, and this just calls for more entrepreneurship and more creativity, I think. And in our business, it's creating more choice in the delivery options, increasing the reliability, offering more customized service, sustainable deliveries, etc. That's all going to be much more dominantly, I think, in our focus. Yeah, and the contrast or the dual challenge, I think, that everybody in this business will face is finding the balance between managing the price pressure on the one hand, but dealing with cost explosions on the other hand. So that's that also requires, I think, a creative and out-of-the-box approach. Yeah, because only pushing prices up in the market will probably not be sufficient in this business. So we will also have to join forces with our customers and partner up to also find new solutions in the market, potentially new growth engines, but also gain efficiencies by monitoring not only our own supply chain end to end, but monitor the end to end supply chain together with our customers and find optimizations there.
So, looking at this from an e-commerce business perspective, how can they manage these pressures, or what should they be looking forward to in 2023?
Yeah, that's of course very, very interesting question. It's I think it's key. Well, a crucial word for me is mindset. I mean, I'm not the e-commerce expert, but dealing with e-commerce companies and big e-commerce companies on a daily basis, I think that if demand is slowing down compared to the previous 2 years at least, then looking very keen or sharp into your market and the dynamics of it. I think one of the examples that I can give you is that some of our customers who have been mainly focused on one home market where they were active and who are now more and more expanding internationally. So I think e-commerce is typically one of these markets that is a cross-border market, both inbound and outbound. So yeah, geographical expansion, that is one. And the other one is that also the split between, let's say, traditional 2B and 2C is getting a bit more blurry at this moment, and for the past few years already. I mean, in the past it was considered to be silos, 2B and 2C markets. But you see more and more, especially in e-commerce, that the split between traditional bricks and mortar, digital stores are coming more and more together. And that also brings B2B, B2C, and C2C more together. So it means omni-channel commerce, which combines all types of consumer behaviors. One of the markets we see growing for the past few years and which seems to be accelerating as well is also, let's say, the second-hand market, where used products get an extended life cycle. That is also a market where we see some more traditional e-commerce players in specific market verticals develop into. So I think it's of course creativity is asked, and these are just a few examples of it.
You just mentioned the second life or second-hand marketplace phenomenon, which is growing not just across Europe, but across the world. And that sort of also ties into that other theme you mentioned before about sustainability. So from where you're sitting, what do both e-commerce retailers and even the logistics world, what do they need to be thinking about when it comes to sustainability?
Sustainability, I think it's for us, it's one of the key pillars in our strategy going forward. It's what we see increasingly, not only driven by our own ambition to let's say outperform the market and be a leader in sustainability in our business, but we see more and more that also consumers are considering sustainability to be an important part of their decision-making process. So not only in the type of products that they buy, like I just described, to save money on purchases. Some consumers are turning more and more into the circular economy as well and buying second-hand products. So that's one of the aspects. But also in the buying behavior and the decision making, we see that, for instance, the regular e-shoppers, so the ones receiving on average 5 parcels or more a month, that 64% of these regular e-shoppers are willing to go to another website to find a more sustainable delivery option. So in our business and joining forces with our customers, it's crucial to offer sustainable delivery options. And it's not only in the last mile with the low emission vehicles, which actually we started rolling out 2 years ago to go to 350 Europe's largest cities with low emission or no emission vehicles, but also shifting that development into the middle mile, for instance.
You mentioned earlier about how DPDgroup has been trying to support its customers and its clients. So sort of just some general points then about how sort of the logistics industry as a whole could support their clients in these volatile times that we're facing at the moment, with all those pressures you just mentioned, whether it's inflation or geopolitical stress and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think, like I pointed out, I think it's crucial that logistics players will work with their clients to optimize the end-to-end value chain. So there's always ways to optimize the way that processes from our customers and our own processes are connected. And now that for all companies there is an increased cost focus and efficiency focus, that is a crucial one to take into considerations. So that's one, and an example can be by changing the pre-sorting, driving directly to specific end destinations if you have enough volume to do so. So it's about the mindset to be willing to do things differently than you have been doing them before. I think that entrepreneurial spirit will be really crucial. So that is I think one. And other than that, I think we're preparing for the future with great initiatives, not only on decarbonization and these types of innovations with customers, but it's also exploring how we can improve the returns market and let's say multi-country cross-border returns flows with our customers. That's also one of these areas where we can really find improvements that benefit both us and the customers. And the same goes for the development of out-of-home delivery, which is an increasing trend as well, and where we are also accelerating our investments to roll out that network and to build up that hybrid out-of-home network. And finding the right balance between home deliveries and out-of-home deliveries is also something that can increase the efficiency and the cost profile with our customers.
And one of the things I think is really interesting about this kind of discussion is that it brings together or emphasizes the fact that all of these things that might have once been, I think your word was siloed or been in silos, they're actually all really super connected. Whether it's something like sustainability, we used to sort of put that in one corner and say, and it would be a separate initiative, as opposed to now sustainability and Second Life and parcel lockers and cross-border and returns and all these things are actually all connected. And
Yes.
I mean, for me, I feel like that's one of our big themes for 2023, sort of as an industry. But Thiemo, do you have any, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share on sort of where we're heading or any sort of key takeaways from our discussion today?
Yeah, I think I don't want to repeat myself, of course, but I think it's really, really critical to think out of the box. And indeed, if you continue to do what we did before and just think that it will work from now on, I think that's just an illusion. So we cannot change the economy as an individual company, but the only thing we can change is the way that we're dealing with it. So I think it's crucial to stay calm, to stay confident. We see the long-term development of this business, which looks very healthy, and this is a temporary situation that we have to get through. But if we continue to be entrepreneurs, think out of the box and focus on execution, I think we will make the best of the coming year as well.
Thiemo van Spellen, Global Accounts Director at DPDgroup. Thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Joining me on the line is Anne Snitko, and is Chief Product Officer at Omnic. And we're having a bit of a look back and a look forward with you today, because I understand that at Omnic you've been doing a bit of research into various bits and pieces, and you're going to share some of that with us today. So why don't you just share what you've been sort of looking at over the past sort of year when it comes to the market research and other things that you've been doing there?
Yeah, I would be happy to share about some insights that we get from 2022, because this year was actually a year of changes to a lot of companies, and especially in supply chain, because a lot of processes were required to be rebuilt. For us, 2020 was no exception, and we devoted this a part of this year, to some deep analysis and research. So this research was based on UC Berkeley Satarja Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology, and also on a number of customer development processes that we conducted. And the goal for our research was to confirm how the logistic industry, self-service industry, express delivery is changing in general, and what automation and robotization trends will affect the industry as a whole. And we divided these changes that we saw after these researches into two parts, like business perspective changes and customer perspective. So from business perspective, we see continuous penetration of robotization at different levels. For example, like autonomous lines are being replaced by robots, but we see that it's not happening fast enough, since the cost of robots is not as cheap as and efficient as, for example, sorting lines. So still, it's not the main innovations that will prevail in the future of warehouse sorting processes. The second big trend that everyone talks about is autonomous transport and different implementation of this technology into logistic. So we know, that Tesla has already launched full autopilot in several regions, and it's actually amazing. But still, this technology will reach, a productivity plateau only in 8-10 years at least, because there are a lot of number of technical and legal processes that this technology must go through to become common. The third trend that we actually talked a little about during our last conversation is B2B sharing economy, and some steps that companies actually are taking into the collaboration with each other. So company begin to cooperate both in warehouse areas or some storage areas and last mile processes as well, in order to optimize their cost. Because as we see, the cost of energy resources is increasing, and they become much more expensive these days, and it's affect the cost of logistics. So, and one more rather controversial trend that I would like to mention is a delivery robot. Actually this autonomous robots that provides last mile in some areas, limited areas, and they build their roads on pedestrian roads, not as a car. And part of the world really believes in these trends, and part of the world considers it as a waste of time, money, and resources.
You're not talking about me, are you? But it is an interesting topic. I mean, when we're talking about automation and self-driving cars and all these sorts of things, we often can get distracted by shiny things, if that makes sense. The new and the novel, well, novel kind of means new, doesn't it? But you all know what I mean. We can get distracted by that without sort of really subjecting it to scrutiny. So just expand a little bit more on this. What your discoveries when it comes to these autonomous delivery robots? You said there is some skepticism.
It's I don't have my personal I'm very interesting to watch what happens next, because as I said, part of the world thinks that it's great technology and you should invest in it, and it's just with the developing of hyperlocal delivery, it's just the great technologies that we need to look at. And part think that this would be this technology is temporary, because in 8-10 years, as I said before, there will be autonomous cars that will go through the standard roads that cars go. They will just stop at some convenient location for customers, and the customer could pick up or drop off the packages from it. So still interesting to watch this technology. I personally think that it's more of temporary technology, that something that will last with us for a long period of time. But we'll see, So we should be open to everything.
So those are things you're talking about from a business. You said that you divided your research into sort of two categories, which was, one was business. What was the other one?
And the other one is the innovation from the end user perspective.
Right.
Something that customer wants and they demand from the business. It's still not about efficiency, not always about efficiency. And one of such trends that we saw is a hyperlocal delivery. Actually, something like that drive this autonomous robots delivery in some way. And operationally, this model is very difficult to run because, for example, for big e-com players who has already established business processes, it's very hard to rebuild their processes to be able to build this 30 minutes, 1 hour delivery to any part of the city.
So you're not talking about those ultra-fast grocers here. You're talking about an e-commerce retailer offering its consumers or its shoppers that fast delivery, whether it's 30 minutes or 1 hour, but within certain geographic zones. So they'll be served from a micro depot or something like that.
Yeah. They build these micro depots to be able to deliver, to offer like this fast delivery gaps.
And so that's what you mean when you're talking about changing business processes. It's not just about technology; it's also about physical assets.
Yeah, of course. And you need to have like these micro depots, as you call them, in different geographic location. You also need to change like the process of picking up the packages. Yeah, and it's a lot to proceed through to make this model operationally successful. But still, we believe that this trend will increase and will have its influence on our during next few years, because customers expect to receive their packages like really fast. They don't want to wait like weeks or days. So
I like that. They don't want to wait weeks or days. Days used to be considered fast. And back in
yeah. Now they want like, I don't know, hours and receive it.
Well, there is always a cost to be paid there. I suppose that's an interesting part of this whole discussion about hyperlocal delivery and very fast or same-day delivery is, are the end consumers prepared to pay for it? And those of us with longer memories will remember, same-day delivery as a B2B service. It was a courier service and was priced accordingly. And you were paying a significant fee as a B2B customer. Let's say a legal firm couriering papers from one office to another office in the same city within the same hour. Those services will be priced accordingly. But yet now people want to order their shoes online and not pay for delivery in an hour, which just seems mad.
Yeah, this is true on some part of the world. So in Europe, I think they're ready to pay more for that. But for example, so currently I'm located in Dubai, in United Arab Emirates. So here you just expect to receive free delivery the same day. So no one will pay for it. So so this is very interesting trend to watch. And I think a lot of companies will optimize and will rebuild their processes, or will have some cooperation with smaller startups to have this model works. Yeah.
And I suppose we have to talk about parcel lockers, though. So what can you tell us about parcel lockers?
Yes, of course. I will tell you about parcel lockers that from our perspective, we did a lot of research, and we saw that this market still has not reached its peak of development, and we see like 30% and on average like year-to-year growth. But we think that it's no longer considered an innovation. It's more like a commodity and something that customers want to have as an option. And key drivers here, like this, like address delivery and labor, which is very expensive at some part of the world. And we have some places where it's very hard for transport to drive at some locations. And the last one, we have some countries with like really high level of life quality, and they offer these parcel lockers just as part of urban infrastructure. So it's not just like, like logistic assets, it's like cities assets. And we see this, we also discussed with you that there are a lot of like different players in each locations who like different parcel locker party in one locations. And this trend will be shifted into like parcel lockers as city infrastructure. So, and we actually see this in a few markets. So, yeah, I think this is the main trends that are really into, deep, that really has deep influence into our sphere right now.
And I think that's a really interesting point about parcel lockers, going from something that was, I'm going to use the word again, a novelty 15 or so years ago. Well, no, maybe more than 15 years ago, but you all know what I mean. There was a time when nobody was delivering to parcel lockers, or especially not what we nowadays consider a parcel locker. But this idea, Anne, of parcel lockers becoming part of an urban infrastructure is particularly interesting. Is that something that you're seeing more, say, in like parts of Western Europe, or is it something that you're seeing in other parts of the world like Southeast Asia? Is there any particular part of the world that's showing that sort of trend right now?
So we actually see it as a part of residential buildings, because more residential buildings, so for example, in US, they started to build these parcel locker rooms, yes, like rooms as a part of residential buildings, and they offer it as a service for their residents. And in some countries, like in Middle East, where like cities is currently building, from the scratch, and they use a lot to optimize their city. They focus a lot on optimizing the city's infrastructure. So we currently see some trends into this as well.
That's really interesting stuff too, isn't it? Talking about parcel lockers in residential buildings, again, something that's been talked about a lot in the postal world over the years, of how it could be made to work, all the ancillary issues around it, whether it's planning permission, whether it's having carrier-specific versus carrier-neutral lockers, how you access the lockers, whether they're inside the building's front door or whether they're external. And I've seen a few examples recently where they're actually, parcel locker networks partnering with building managers to try and do this. But it's really interesting to see how all this is happening, isn't it? And that there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to creating a parcel locker network that's near to the end recipient, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting to watch all these transformation of the industry and how it will go, from the innovation and from some novelty into something that will be built into day-to-day life, and something that you just even not notice when you use it, because it's just essential part of your daily processes.
So, Anne, how then are you at Omnic using all of these insights that you've gathered?
Yeah, so actually, we use this insight to refocus our business model from, such traditional enterprise sales into like partnership. And we used this sharing economy and Parcel Locker growth to build master franchisee business model and Parcel Locker as infrastructure. So actually, what we're doing right now, we give our expertise to some local entrepreneurs who wants to launch or to expand Parcel Lockers in particular market, and we help like from the production of Parcel Lockers to like location management system, searching and managing, and we built all these puzzles together to create like efficient. And when we say efficient, we expect like 23% return on investment from the first years, but not just liabilities that our partners need to wait for a few years to get their money back. So we build this franchise model to expand Parcel Lockers network, and we also offer to local partners like Parcel Lockers as EIS model. It's infrastructure as a service model. So we invest ourselves and give opportunity to local players or retailer companies who don't want to invest or to build their own Parcel Lockers, just to use it at their own, but not owning them.
And if people want to find out more about what Omnic does and all the services that you have to offer, where should they go?
So just visit our website. It's omnic.net. You could find all the contact there and some information on our products.
I'll stick a link to that on thepostalhub.com as well. So if you're listening to this on the website, just look on this page and you'll see a link to the Omnic website, omnic.net. Or if you're out walking the dog, just to memorize it, omnic.net. Omnic.net. You'll get home from walking the dog and that's all you'll be thinking of, omnic.net. There you go. Right. And Snitko, Chief Product Officer at Omnic, omnic.net, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you, Jan. Hope it was useful.
Joining me on the line is David Spottiswoode. David is co-founder at Hurricane Commerce. David, great to have you with us again. Looking forward from where you're sitting, what are some of the main things that the postal and delivery world needs to know when it comes to cross-border e-commerce, any particular data and customs and things like that?
Yeah, well, nice to be here, Ian. Good to see you again. It's a changing world, isn't it? And, one of the things that is changing rapidly now is essentially all the demands and requirements around regulation, compliance, etc. And wherever you go in the world, the one thing that everybody talks about is, there's many events that are happening, and we'll touch on some of those that are happening next year. But it is actually all about the data. It's all about governments, governmental agencies want to know what's moving around the world, what's coming into their country, what's going out of their country. And the requirement on data is all about, illicit material. It's about, compliancy with prohibited and restricted goods, animal products, etc. But it's also, and, I think this is what's really driving some of the fiscal data requirement is, governments are looking to recover taxes and duties around the world, right? And it doesn't matter which country you go to, all the countries need to recover as much money as they can. And one of the key areas that they can do that in is cross-border e-commerce. And that therefore drives, the whole piece around data, because with the data, they can do the calculation and they can, frankly, issue the bill as to what you and I should pay as a consumer about buying online.
And this is avoiding what you've called in the past the doorstep surprise, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's kind of two things. It's kind of the government wants the money, which the government is us, so that's understandable. We want to, recover sales tax, but it is also that piece around, because there's, the removal of the low value threshold in Europe, as an example, that means everything gets taxed. And most consumers, when they're buying something online, don't realise that there's it's not just the cost of the goods and the transportation; it's the tax associated with that purchase, which you will be asked about if you haven't paid it at checkout. You'll be asked about when it comes for delivery, and that's, as you quite rightly say, the doorstep shop. But I think for me, the bit that is really coming down the line quite fast now is, that bit on the fiscal element is very important and very key, no doubt. But the compliance and regulation data is also, key. And that for, as I said earlier, it's not just about events that are happening around the world, but it's also around data. And there's a big event coming in March next year, which will have, quite a consequence, I think, on the industry if they're not prepared.
Now, I wanted to ask you about this because on 1st of March next year in 2023, there is a key regulatory event happening. Can you just share a bit of details about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, we've had ICS1, which was this last March, right, this year, and that required certain parties in the supply chain to have the right data. And as per all, initiatives, it was kind of, you must have the data, but if you don't, it's still going to move, right? And that's kind of what's happened to a degree. But what it did do is sort of highlight that the second part of ICS, ICS2, is coming in March, as you quite rightly say, and this is going to be the requirement for mandatory data for all parties in the supply chain. So why is that going to have a bigger impact? Well, simply said, in the past it was, the carrier, the postal company as an example, that would have to try and have the right data. Well, this now means all parties. So the airlines are looking at it and going, well, actually, if I'm not provided by the origin with the right data, then I'm not going to uplift the shipment, because I know that I can't pass it across to the inbound country. So what you've actually got now, and now everybody's using that word, Ian, which is very, very not very well known in this industry, is it's mandatory, right? So it's not going to be you can, and if you want to do it, you can. If you don't want to do it, don't worry, we'll turn a blind eye. This is everybody in the supply chain needs to produce that data. Now, that's the, I won't call it scare message, but, it's a tricky message, because advanced electronic data and complete data and accurate data, and I'll touch on that in a second, is a difficult thing to do, or could have been a difficult thing to do. But in today's world, actually, with the right technology, you can pick up pretty much most of that data. And when I say accurate data, in the past, if you fill in the box on the label, the data box on the label with an HS code as an example of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even though it was garbage, it would still get through because the box has been filled, right? In the new world, that HS code has to be accurate to the product description. So that's a simple example of, it's not just about having the data, it's about having the right data.
So this accuracy and validation is a key part of this new, yeah. I don't want to say regime, but I can't think of a better word.
Yeah.
Basically, there's going to be a lot more accountability at every step of the way. So
yeah, I think. Sorry, I was just going to say, Ian. I was talking to one of the posts last week, in fact, and the reason why it's so important for them. I mean, it's important for us, for consumers, right? Because if you buy something, you expect it to be delivered, right? And you don't know what an HS code is, right? Why should you? But for the post, it's even more important, because if they receive material without the right data, they can't lodge it for customs, which means they have to store it until they've got the right data. They've then got to go back to the origin country, to try and get the right data. So it becomes quite not just a burden from a process point of view, but you've been around as well. You imagine the costs that are involved in shipments that you've got to store before you can lodge it until you get the right data. So it's quite a complex thing. But positive is you can solve it. It's not something that you can't fix.
There's also the spectre, shall we say, of the Stop Act, the US's Stop Act.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in that space?
Well, again, like all of these things, they were laws that were passed, and again, that Stop Act was essentially, looking at drugs and illicit material going into the US. But it's kind of broader than that now. It's really looking at trying to capture those illicit goods that are going in. Now, the Stop Act is exactly what it means, right? They are saying if they don't know what's in the parcel, ain't getting in, right? So that is also now being enforced and will become enforced more rigorously through the course of 2023. But as I say, whether it's the Stop Act, whether it's ICS2, whether it's IOSS with collection of VAT, whether it's, these are all compliancy and regulatory events that are happening. And it's all about getting the right data and knowing what's moving around the world.
And so getting the right data, that's the question I reckon everybody listening to this is going to ask. How do we get the right data when, say, in a postal network, you've got parcels coming in over the counter at a post office. You've got parcels being lodged maybe in street posting boxes.
Yeah.
And then you've got your big volumes coming in from your e-commerce customers who have probably got, digital manifests and things like this. So what can you do?
Well, I mean, again, over the years we've spoken about this. This is why we started Hurricane, right? And it's funny you mentioned the over-the-counter because we work very closely with Ozpost, and I think they've got 4,500 retail outlets, something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but they've actually launched our technology into the retail counters now. So go and send something and tell me how it all works. Send me a Christmas present here. But no, we've launched with Australia Post. So our technology is all about identifying the right data, customs data, required data that sits behind a product description and or vice versa. So if you have the right customs code, but you don't have a product description, then we can reverse engineer that, right? So basically, getting the right data is all about all of those entry points that you said. Now, one of the leaky areas was the retail counters, right? Because most businesses you can jump on to say, look, you're giving us the wrong data, we need to clean it up, etc. And I'll give that example, as I said, with Australia Post, they run the data through the Hurricane APIs, which, whether it's from a big multinational or a SME, that's covered off, right? So it runs through the system, we populate the data, and it gets pushed back to Ozpost. And we've recently started to do the retail counters because, as I said, the leaky area is that piece, because although the volumes are not as big, the problem is the same, because if you put some of that leaky material into your main consignment, the whole thing gets stopped. Right. So what we've done with Ozpost is they've now put our technology into those retails, so that the Mr. Postie, even if it's where they have it, the postal drop off is a cafe as well as a postal retail postal counter. They have the technology that they will ask you what's in the parcel, and gift is no longer accepted. Right, so you can't, that little loophole's being closed down. So you say it's an iPhone or whatever it is that you're sending to me for Christmas, Ian. That'd be nice. But then they put it into their counter system, and we populate all the data, customs data relative to that shipment. So we are a technology company. There are other ones as well. I'm talking about Hurricane because I co-founded it. But data availability is there, but it's critical to have it across all areas, because actually, as I say, I always talk about the leaky areas, and the leaky areas are the bits that you you think, oh, they don't matter too much because there isn't any volume. Well, customs don't look at it like that. Customs look at it as, I've just received a whole bunch of shipments from a post, and there are some in there without any data, so I'm going to stop the thing.
That's a really interesting point, David, that probably a lot of us in the sector haven't given a great deal of thought to, which is, one parcel missing the data could contaminate an entire shipment.
Yeah.
And if the airlines are taking the approach that you outlined earlier, I'm not going to accept a shipment if I don't know what it is, if I'm not able to communicate that at the other end, then that has significant implications. If you've got one dodgy parcel, I use the word dodgy, everybody, but you all know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about the Stop Act, that you are indeed talking about dodgy parcels. That's what they're trying to stop. But I think that, to your point, is because this is now a mandatory requirement. And again, I forget, I'm getting old, but Lufthansa have issued that statement that if they don't have the data, they won't uplift the consignments. Because you see, they have a liability against them as well now if they don't do it. So that's why March next year is actually quite a pivotal moment. And we're seeing this is great from the postal guys. They're not waiting till March, right? We're already busy with postal companies all around the world because although this is an EU requirement, right? It's all about the origin. Right, so whether it's Australia, whether it's Hong Kong, whether it's whoever it is, we're busy already with making sure that they're gunned up and fully equipped for being able to operate properly, because it costs everybody money, and really importantly, which we always talk about the money and the cost savings and all of that, but it's also customer satisfaction, right? Because if the postal industry can't deliver the same service that some of the private operators deliver, then they'll lose market share.
And we shouldn't underemphasize that point, Dave. I don't know, we're at the end of our conversation. I feel like maybe we should have put that at the very beginning. To say this is when we talk about eliminating the doorstep surprise, though. What that is, the recipient doesn't want to get a request for money from the delivering postal operator. But that is part of customer service. Having a smooth checkout. Exactly. That's got to be customer service as well, especially since we're in a world where, I don't know what the percentage is, David, of what parcels are actually generated by the recipient as opposed to, you know what I mean? When we shop online, we're generating our own parcels as opposed to spontaneous Christmas presents. Or, as we've just found out, apparently I'm sending David an iPhone
for Christmas.
For Christmas. Will a photo of an iPhone suffice, David? I think that's about what my budget would stretch to. So let's not forget then the customer service aspect of it. It's not just about the risk that the posts might be carrying. It's also about customer service. Customer service translates into, or customer experience, customer service, same thing perhaps. Not sure, translates into sustainability of your business. So
sorry, and I was gonna say, in today's world, it's just touching lastly, the other element that goes into this is customer satisfaction, 100%. But the other thing that comes into it, that I was talking to some of the postal governing bodies, and getting the right data is also sustainability, because anything that doesn't have the right data has either got to be destroyed or sent back. And I'm talking millions and millions and millions of shipments, right, being sent back. I mean, that, in anybody's world, you don't want to be doing that because that is not a sustainable direction.
So, David, people who want to find out more about Hurricane can go to hurricanecommerce.com. That's the website.
Correct.
All kinds of information about the company. And you've got a few items of interest there as well, talking about the changes that are coming through in the various customs regimes and things like that. So go to hurricanecommerce.com and you can find out more about the company and find the address to send David his iPhone for Christmas. David Spottiswoode, co-founder of Hurricane, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thanks, Ian.
Coming soon on the Postal Hub podcast, Sid Hart, Managing Director at APP, that's Asia Pacific Post, joins us to talk about the work of APP, including some interesting developments in the world of cross-border parcels. Also coming soon on the Parcel the Postal Hub podcast. And Snitko from Omnic returns to talk about parcel lockers and some really interesting stuff there relating to setting up parcel locker networks and partnerships in parcel lockers and things like that. Make sure you don't miss either of these episodes or anything else that we've got coming up in 2023. Subscribe to the podcast in your favourite podcast platforms such as Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please do also subscribe to my email newsletter. Go to thepostalhub.com and follow the links, and you'll get an email from me every time there's a new Postal Hub podcast published. What else? You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post stuff on LinkedIn from time to time that you might find interesting and enlightening. And if you want to contact me about anything at all, send me an email. Ian@thepostalhub.com is my email address. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.